In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I am your host, Charles King, and tonight we will start our show off with a Black History reflection as well as a tribute to Women's National History Month by reflecting on Miss Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison once said, "If you can't imagine it, you can't have it." She understood that imagination is not an escape. It is a weapon, a tool of liberation, a way for Black people to reclaim our humanity in a world determined to distort it. Morrison wrote us into fullness. She wrote us into complexity. She wrote us into a place where our pain was not spectacle, our joy was not accidental, and our existence was not negotiable. Through Beloved, Song of Solomon, The Bluest Eye, and her essays that cut through the American facade, she forced this nation to confront the truth that Black life is not a footnote in American history, it is a spine. Her work reminds us that storytelling is power, that language shapes identity, that the narratives we accept become the realities we live in, and in time when America is wrestling with who it is and who it wants to be, Toni Morrison's legacy calls us to imagine boldly, speak truthfully, and refuse to shrink. Tonight, we honor her not just as a writer, but as a cultural architect who taught us that freedom begins in the mind and that the stories we tell about ourselves and each other determine the world we build. So as we get into this show, I want to start with this monologue because it's true for this time and it's true for the things that we're going through right now here in America. America is at a crossroads again. A nation built on contradictions is now being forced to confront them in real time. We are a global superpower, yet internally divided. We are a land of opportunity, yet opportunity is not evenly distributed. We are a country that prides itself on freedom, yet struggles to extend that freedom equally. Tonight, I want to speak plainly, not as a commentator, not as a critic, but as an American who loves this country and country enough to tell the truth about it. We're living in a moment where our standing in the world is shifting, where our relationships with each other are strained, and where the economic realities of race, gender, and class are shaping the future of millions. And if we are going to move forward, if we're going to build a nation worthy of its promise, we must understand where we stand, how we got here, and what it will take to rise. This is not a conversation of despair, it's a conversation of clarity, because clarity is the first step towards change. Let's get into it. So, what I'd like to get into first is I want to talk about this breakdown of the state of America and America's standing in the world. Okay, we all know that America is still powerful, but no longer unquestioned. Our global standing is shaped by several realities. Those realities that I'd like to speak on, or when we talk about economics, when we talk about home ownership, we talk about um, employment, and when we talk about representation and what things look like from a global perspective when we talk about this country. Right now, as we all know of the disparities and the things that are taking place right now are beyond any of our control. We know about this wartime situation. That we'll talk about tomorrow, but it's relative to what we're going to be talking about tonight. And what I want you guys to understand is that um, right now we know that. Let me break it down this way when I talk about our standing. So let's say we talk about our geopolitical competition. China's economic rise and Russia's aggressive posture have shifted the balance of global influence. The US is still a leader, but no longer the only leader. When we talk about that, and we talk about situations that's happening currently right now as of today, it is clear that when it comes to leading the world, the standing of America is not there. It's beneath, it's fallen. And it's fallen because people that are supposedly in places to lead the world, we don't have qualified people there. We've got folk that are there that's leading this country that are the main subjects of things that they have talked about the most that they wanted to get rid of. And that premise falls onto what we're talking about with DEI. DEI is supposedly was put in place, supposed to quote unquote, let the standing of what these folk that are running the country now say is that people that are not qualified. And so those people that are not qualified means that they supposed to quote unquote was getting a leg up. Well, it's clear and present to each and every last one of us that the people that supposedly quote unquote that are leading this country, they're not qualified to lead the country. As a matter of fact, they have us in situations right now that we don't even know what the status not only of this country, but of the world right now. And we don't have enough people that are able and strong enough to stand up and speak on that truth. Now, you heard me mention China's economic rise and Russia's aggressive posture. Now, with the situations that are present today, if you want to know the truth, it's clear that the China, is the leader of the free world. And what makes that so truthful is that China is being the grown up in the room because everything that goes around the world, primarily, the majority of these things are produced in China. That is from clothing to resources such as like steel, um, wood, whatever you have it. I mean, primarily they're producing all of these things around the world where people are going over there to get these products. And that even includes car manufacturing, Cars can't get manufactured unless they get a lot of their materials from China. Now, we also know that when I mentioned both China and Russia, as far as military powers, they are at an equal standing to some extent with America. Now, we don't agree with their leaders because supposedly, quote unquote, the way we cover and talk about these nations is from an inferior complex, that we make them inferior. Well, we can't say that because China's economic power and standing has risen consistently over the last 20 years. Russia, which has not been strong economically for some time because of sanctions by the US. Now, we can all sit here and say that when it comes down to this economics, that yeah, America's supposed to be this place because what can America do? America can print some money, which is a bad thing. America can spend some money, which is a bad thing. But America is borrowing money majorly from China, the place that's inferior, but the place that's leading. I hope this makes sense to a lot of people because, the game goes like several different ways and it does an enormous amount of things. I'm saying all that to say that the people that are leading this country right now is running it way into the ground. And because they're doing it on a premise of fascism and bigotry. That's the main two things. They're mutually exclusive, but they're different. And so by doing that, they are creating a problem that's not only uh, causing problems for people in the country, but the standing internationally and around the world globally. America is looked at it as a laughing stock because the leaders are not competent enough to not only make the right decisions, but make the decisions that are for the embetterment of its people. So, with that, I mean, there's several things that are happening now that we just really, you know, it's so many things to talk about when it comes to this that we could basically spend this whole time talking about it. But we're not going to do that way. We'll do that tomorrow. But I just want you guys to know when they talk about geopolitical competition, really, when they talk about China and Russia, which is true, but they too have done what was necessary to create their standings by creating coalitions outside of the US. The US has no coalitions. The people that were there, or the countries that were there before, have abandoned that coalition because we have people that are dangerous and they're doing dangerous and careless things and expect people to take their countries and put their people in harm's way when they're not going to do that. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for joining the show. I appreciate you so much. And so, with that, from a geopolitical standpoint, America's at a very bad disadvantage because competence means everything. And if you're able to understand both monetary and fiscal policy, and you understand how economics work, then America shouldn't be where we are right now. And we're only here because, again, the fascism and the bigotry is causing the country to fall into real serious, dangerous territory. And is falling into these territories because of the people that's actually leading it. It's not leading, it's following. And it's followed folk down a serious rabbit hole that's going to really not just cause problems from a short term, but most likely long term if we're actually able to get out of this. So, when I was talking about the relationships, I'm going to talk about allied relationships. Okay, there are traditional alliances that remain strong with America, but global partners now hedge their bets. They cooperate with America while simultaneously building relationships with other powers. And how are they able to do that? They're able to use the leaders here in America to get what they need to save face, but to move in other areas for their embetterment. They're not going to put their country or their people in harm's way when it's not necessary. And so, as America's economy was strong 2 years ago, was improving 2 years ago, a year, well, I'm going to say last year, that all changed. And so, from the economics perspective, it's made each and every person that's here in this country are facing some serious consequences, are facing things that they never thought they would be facing. So it does not matter if you're if you're in the top 1%, you're not worried. Anything underneath the top 1%, you are affected by this. And the way you are affected is the way that you're finding yourself having, not only with prices being high on food, gas, electricity, water, you name it. Everything is high. But when you get to the point that now gas in California is now at $8 a gallon, $8+ a gallon, and you got other places where it's now risen from $2.50 to now $3.50, $4. As it goes from east to west, the prices get higher. Regionally, it gets higher. And that all depends upon culture and climate. Now, we know how we got here. We got here because we have, again, those folk that are focusing on bigotry and racism is why we're here. And that's not working. It's clearly not working because situations today are dictating dire needs of survival. That's where we are. People are thinking about survival. Going into survival mode, now you can be in survival mode, but you have to understand what survival is. So you see, most people just think that when we're in this and we're talking about relationships, relationships mean a whole lot because when you can rely on someone when you fall short, that means they got you and they pick you up. America does not have that right now. America does not have that right now. And so when it says America against the world, because that's basically what we're looking at, America against the world. That means that we need to have competence to step in right now at this point and change the direction of the ship because the ship is sinking and it's sinking fast. It's sinking fast. But most people, those that can have some kind of influence or make some kind of difference to those that are making these decisions, they're choosing not to, which means, my opinion, it sounds like they'd rather just have the world destroyed. So when we talk about I want to tell you guys about moral authority. The world watches our internal divisions, racial tension, political polarization, economic inequality, and questions whether America can still claim the moral high ground. The answer to that question is absolutely not. It absolutely cannot do that. And its reason for not doing that is because racial tensions are worse than they've ever been. They're worse than they were in the 1950s. You got these very folk that are misleading. This includes mainstream press. They're misleading people that are not apparently they're not educated enough to make the right decisions and don't know how to listen, don't know how to comprehend, but think that anybody that does not look like them is against them. That's a problem. Now, with that being said, I mean, hey, people are free to choose what they do and how they do it, but it's how it affects other people that makes it everybody's problem. When we talk about our political polarization, it's the same thing because politicians, instead of actually doing what they need to do for the folk that vote them in, they're basically working for the interests of those outside of this country. So that means the citizens vote you in, but you work for the other people that's abroad. Now, somebody has to make that make sense. And I really would appreciate it if somebody could tell me exactly what does that mean? Because what I'm looking at America going nowhere fast, but it's heading to the bottom, all the way to the bottom. And so when we talk about economic inequality has gotten worse when it comes to working everyday folk, people that they would classify as being middle class, and then you got the top 1%. Now, everybody is either middle class or low class. If you're not in that top 1%, you're middle class at least. So if you're at least middle class, that means that, yeah, you're being affected. You're just not being as affected as fast as those that are all the way at the bottom. So that means you have to think about that. How do we fix that? We fix that by building coalitions within this country that connects each and every last one of us to work together in order to change this system because this system has more than just cracked. This system is on the brink of totally breaking, which means that we're all about to experience something that we never thought we would face, that we never thought we would be going through, and how this should be. But it's not too late to do what's necessary in order to make this work because we can all get together, come up with a plan, and make this work. We can all make this work. And I'm calling on each and every last one of you to at least work together, to start trying to work together, and let's make this right. Because if we don't, and I think the perils would be in a way that none of us would ever want this to be. So now it's time, now is the time to get your real human moral compasses together and start doing the right thing. We all have to do this. This is just a call for all of us to start thinking about how we can continue to build our communities, how we can build our communities the way they used to be, how we can take back our communities and make them everything that we know we want these communities to be. Because taking from one just because, and then saying that it's your right to do that? No, it's not. No, it's not. And I know each and every last one of us have had the teachings and knowing that what's right is what's right. And we have to do that. So, there's economic influence as well. The US dollar remains what they're still calling it as dominant, but it's not. But global markets are diversifying. Other nations are exploring alternatives to reduce dependence on American financial systems. Yeah, that's exactly right. Which means that the dollar still can't be dominant. But what I will tell you is this: when you got countries that have been used and abused so much, and that most of them are creating their own sense of system, own sense of being, and coming back to their own rise, that's a sure sign that America has actually sown too many bad seeds. So now we need to get real people that's going to do real things to help to build what we know we would like to see. This is what we need to be doing. And so, just looking at this as an overall, this is the way America is viewed. We're seen as innovative, powerful, and culturally influential, but also unstable, divided, and unpredictable. The world respects our strength, but questions our unity. What does that tell you? That means that people can walk into America, they can get what they need, they can leave, and they can use that to their advantage wherever they go outside of this country. But for the people here in this country, where is the trust, where is the loyalty, and where is the willingness to build what you have started? All of us have started an enormous amount of good things. And all of us have ideas of things that we want to do. We have to go back and we're going to have to create our own lanes when it comes to economics. We're going to have to build our own when it comes to providing, that is, from an entrepreneurship perspective, that is, of jobs and community wealth and generational wealth for our family. We're going to have to really get down and create this. We've got to put in that work in order to change this. These are things that we can do, we shall do, and I know that we're going to be able to do these things. I'm very confident about this. And I'm only saying this because, as I get deeper into this, there are some things that's going to be very, very scary that we talk about, but it's the truth. Now, we can go back and we could talk about many, many things, but I'm going to tell you about here in America and how we see each other. Okay, this is very key. This is very important because this right here is probably the main and major point that I need to make. Okay, America's greatest challenge is not foreign, it is internal. And what makes that internal? Race. Race. Race is the number one issue in America. Despite how many of us may be able to work through that and still continue to work on our journeys as we build, that's a wonderful thing to do. But see, now is the time that you must realize if anybody just take the time and sit back, and I want you to ask yourself this question. If you're white, what is it that black people have taken from you? What are they doing to you? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. What you're being influenced by or the incompetence that's running this country that's causing so many people to fall off the wagon, to fall off the road. And the reason why you're falling off the road is because you're too incompetent, too uneducated to understand that when you sit back and you ask yourself this one question, what are black people stealing from me? Not one thing. Not one thing. But you see, it does not stop from everything that's built from the structural perspective of the system that's here in this country. It does not stop the structure that try to hinder black people from doing what they need to do. But when that day comes, that may be a problem for you. Now, from black people, what is it that white people have done to you? Of course, that's more than just a question of what you can answer and many things you can say. But what you have to understand, black person, is what is your problem with your people? Your problem is you are not able, and because of divide and conquer, you honestly have the belief that anybody that looks like you that's trying to do something good that's building, that you can't even support it. You refuse to support it. And the reason why you refuse to support it is because if you're associated with that, that means that, okay, you're seeing in a negative light. You don't want to be seen in a negative light because what the white people got going for them is going to be so much better for you. You can't even support your own people. Now, let's go ask the Asians, what have black people or white people done to you? Can you answer that question? If you are Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, anything from South America, what have black people or white people done for you or done to you? Black people ain't done nothing to you because you have the same dissension. But most of you have a problem identifying. So if you can't identify, that means you're running off being anything other than what you are because you want to be accepted as white. You're Asian, you want to be accepted as white. Anything else outside of black Americans, you want to be accepted as white. So you do not want to identify as black. So you see how we got this race culturality problem here in America? People that look like me are happy being who that most are happy with being who they are. There's a lot that are not happy with that. Anything else that's coming into America wants to be white as well. Well, I can tell you this. I don't know why that's happening. I do know the dynamics are not right. And I will tell you this. I am more than happy of being a black man. Because for me, I know that my origin is all about being royal, strong, and doing what's necessary when it comes to building my community and being loyal to my people. I'm happy with everybody, but I'm loyal to my people because my people and my communities mean more than anything in the world to me. And that's what we all should be working for because right now we don't know if we're going to have a community after all this madness that's taking place right now. And how many of you can actually look yourself in the face in the mirror right now and say, I'm happy with what I've done, I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I know that I'm contributing to my community and I'm making impact. Most of you can't even say that because it's the last thing on your mind. What you're thinking about it more is exploitation. See, when it's talk about black and brown communities continue to face disparities in policing, education, healthcare, and wealth. That is very true. But there's a problem trying to work together unified. How is it that we can continue right now at this point in time to stay divided instead of actually working together and doing what we need to do? You guys should be sick of this thing about trying to work and be a part of white folk because white people don't care. That's the number one issue here in America. White people don't care about black people. If they did, I mean, and I shouldn't say that because that's blanket. Let me just say, there are some white people that don't care about black people. I'll put it that way because I can qualify that earlier statement. There are some that don't, and they let you know that. That's their feelings. That has to be accepted. That has to be accepted. But come on, black people, what is wrong with you wanting to be who you are? Why are you running wanting to change who you are? White Americans are increasingly divided between those who acknowledge systemic inequality and those who deny it. Again, there goes that line. So again, it don't, people can be bad for who they are or what they call themselves to be. But what those people do that cause harm to people need to be held accountable. So that's the accountability part. So if we all learn that accountability and do what we have to do and be accountable to who we are and what we do and who we do it with, we're good. But when I say that from that perspective, that is everything that you're doing is on the positive side. You're not trying to be disparaging. You're not trying to run and create some kind of craziness that's going to make people go crazy. We already got folk that's running this country, that's running it in the ground, and they're doing the worst things in the world. But you still got people that believe that what these folk are doing is correct. That ain't right. That is not right. So my thing is, come on, y'all, send me some questions and comments because I want to know your feelings about this because right now, our current situations, I'm speaking on these from other perspectives and not directly at what's happening right now. But everything that's happening right now is affecting all of us in more negative ways than we can ever imagine. And I'm just sowing some of the seeds of what's out there and what's causing this. Immigrant communities, they face rising hostility and political scapegoating. Now, as horrible as that is, you know, there are a lot of folk that were able to come into this country, especially when the Civil Rights Act was passed. People that look like me fought long and hard for that because we have rights too. Now, we can go back and talk about when this place was stolen, how they wrote this doctrine, which was the Constitution, and these Bill of Rights with these amendments, and what they supposed to mean, what they do. No, you see, that is that is when you come in and you just basically say that you're entitled to do these things because you made this yours when you stole it. And there are people still today that hate to hear that, but that's what happened. So if you were a damn immigrant, but you came over here and you stole this land, what makes you think you've got the right to make this kind of claim? That's number one. Number two, what gives you the right to say what's human and what's not human? Saying black people are a fifth of a person. What makes you think that you have the right to tell somebody what to do with their bodies? especially when it's known that you are not procreating enough because your body cannot procreate the way it should. That's your problem, not everybody else's. And how do you, when you create the slave catchers, that you turn into a lethal, a lethal force that's got the authority to kill anything that does not look white? So now you think you could go around the world and police the whole world because you're entitled. And that's not going to work. That is not going to work. From the economic perspective, when we talk about economics inequality and why it's widening, the top 1% controls more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Let me say that one more time. The top 1% controls more wealth than the bottom 90%. Now that's 91%. So the other 9% is in between. The other 9% is in between. And that's pretty much where you at, where you're just surviving primarily, where you got some opportunities to do a few things, but you're surviving. That's not where you and nobody else want to be. The folk that 90% at the bottom, they don't want to be there either. But when you create laws and a system or rules in a system that allows you to take more money than people can earn, what do you think? That's worse than economic inequality. That's economic suicide. And it's happening more in black and brown communities than anywhere else. Let's unify, because unless we're able to continue the path that we're on with entrepreneurship and building our communities instead of running to other sides of town because you say, oh, it's much better over there, stay on your side of town and build it. Because I don't think a zip code makes a difference to me. It does not. And I choose not to live in places like that because that's not for my betterment. Property value can be just the same on any other side of town that you are when you stay and you do what you need to do to build that community. That's what community building is. Community building ain't saying, oh, like I'm here in Metro Atlanta. Community building ain't like saying, oh, well, I need to go live in Buckhead. Or I need to go live in Alpharetta because that's where all the great people live. And that's where you get the most quality and bang for your buck. Where you're going to overpricing and you're not really getting anything. They just put more crap out there to get you out there, make you say, okay, well, you can get this conveniently. And again, that's what's happening. It's because they're taking the tax dollars from the black and brown communities for all the hard work and all of those people that are in communities that they are. They're taking those resources and giving it to those people. Stay on your side of town and build it. Because believe me, you see situations like we got today, this is what's contributing to that. This is where the reality check comes in. And when the reality check comes in and you realize that you're definitely in the wrong place, it'll probably be too late. It'll probably be too late. Middle class families are shrinking. Pretty much that's down. That's what that 9% is primarily. That's that 9%. And working class Americans across all races feel abandoned by political and economic systems, which is so true. Those systems don't mean nothing for you or nobody else as long as you're not in that top 1%. And the top 1% is getting so much stronger now that it's all about the stranglehold of taking the country by its neck and just pretty much doing whatever is to cut the head off. So cutting the head off of the bottom 99% of this country and just letting that top 1%, which is maybe 300 to 500 people, hey, they good to go. They're good to go. But what about everybody else? you mean nothing apparently. So stop thinking that people owe you something. Stop thinking that somebody is stealing from you. And stop thinking that every time you see somebody that's non-white, that they've got to be dangerous and murderers and thugs and things of that nature. Because even today, right now, you still got other folk that still think that way. There are bad people everywhere. There are bad white folk, there are bad black folk, there are bad Hispanic folk, bad Asian folk. They're bad everything. But stop trying to categorize and put all of the that stigma that black is bad and white is good, because that is not the case. The intersection of race and economics. Let me just read something here for you guys. Race determines access, economics determines mobility. Together, they shape opportunity. Black and brown Americans are disproportionately represented in low wage jobs, underfunded neighborhoods, and under resourced schools. Meanwhile, wealth accumulation remains heavily skewed towards white households. That's not new for anybody. We all know that. But you see, today's times are adding and building up more and more on this very, very issue, building up more and more. And so what that means is that as time flies by and people are living their day-to-day lives, you've got to make it count. You've got to make it count. Because if you don't make it count, and let's say these conditions right now continue, they can continue for a month. If they continue for a month and America has already lost $13 billion in 4 days, they lost $13 billion in 4 days. So all of this high tech and everything that they have built and so forth, that's been destroyed, totally destroyed. What is it going to take for them to rebuild all of that stuff? We're talking about in another 6, 7, 8 years, rebuilding all of this high tech, prices still staying high, homelessness getting higher. People can't afford to eat food, so they're probably dying from hunger. People can't afford school. All of this that's happening is totally unnecessary. There are no countries backing this agenda that America has. There are no other countries. Their allies are there because they've been there before. But when all this foolishness that's taking place in America, they do not support that. So other countries get a view of what's happening here in America. They learn from that and they get better. But America gets worse. Greed is what it's called. It's called greed. So when we talk about economics and we talk about ethnicity and gender, these are some things that I think you guys should also get the opportunity to understand, because this is a learning time right now. And, with white households hold nearly 6 to 7 times more wealth than black households. Latino households face similar disparities, though with slightly higher mobility. Asian American households show higher median wealth, but with extreme internal inequality. So, does that mean that we have to all just say we're going to kiss the ring? Because I'm still not understanding, why are we still at this point that this is what we got going on and nobody's doing their due diligence. Where is the community? Where do we get together and unite and we make this country. We make our way of living better for us. And we do what we do internally. Because if we did this internally, I can guarantee you that our lives would be different. Our lives would be different. And I would be very, very happy in that process. But I'm just hoping and I'm praying that that day comes that I get that call from several groups or from several people that they're ready to start doing some things that we need to do in order to build, because that's what we need to do. I am appealing to each and every last one of you. I am willing and able to work with you. That ain't one person, that's all of you. I am willing and able to work with you. But it has to be on the positive front of doing what needs to get done in order to establish strong communities around this country. Because people are so used to now taking away from communities, especially communities of color, that it's a sad state of affairs. It's a sad state of affairs. So when we talk about economics, let me tell you about this from a gender perspective so you can actually see this also. And that is, women earn less than men across nearly every industry. Black women and Latino women face the steepest wage gaps. Women are underrepresented in executive leadership and overrepresented in low wage sectors. Are we in 1955 still? That's 1955. That's 1955. Women being second class citizens and not being allowed to do what she is supposed to do or what she can do. It's because somebody's ego is so big that he refuses to not only earn less than a woman, but refuse to let a woman be in charge and tell him what to do. When are we going to change that? So, this combined effect is that a black woman in America faces the triple bind of race, gender, and economic inequality. A Latino man faces barriers tied to immigration, language, and generational wealth. A white man benefits from systems built with him in mind. These disparities are not accidental, they are structural. Now remember, I said black woman, Latino man, and a white man. I did not say a white woman and a black man. So, as you're seeing, this is how America sees this wealth gap economically. The black man and white woman does not figure, apparently. They don't figure. So this goes to what we talk about with home ownership, because with economics, you want to own a home because you want the American dream, right? Which means home ownership is what that's about. So home ownership is the foundation of generational wealth, but access is unequal. White home ownership is at 72%. Black home ownership is at 44%, but Latino home ownership is at 51%. So, what's actually happening there? These barriers include higher mortgage denial rates for Black and Brown applicants, lower appraisals for homes in minority neighborhoods, student loan debt disproportionately affecting Black borrowers, and rising housing costs outpacing wage growth. Home ownership is becoming a privilege, not a guarantee. So, what do you think is contributing to this problem of people owning homes? Why is this getting worse and worse and worse? And some of us are actually thinking that there are so many things that we can do or what we should do, and that unless we're doing doing the things that people want us to do, is only the time for acceptance. Well, I'll tell you like this: worried about people accepting you and you doing what you need to do, those are two different things. But I'm going to tell you this: if you are able to get yourself to that point that you need to buy a house, that you want to buy a house, buy the house. Because I can tell you this, home ownership, it makes that big of a difference. It adds to everything that you could ever imagine. Because when you have a piece of this pie with home ownership, there are several things that several doors open, and they make things a whole lot easier for you. So I more than recommend that each person get to that point of making that big plunge, because you'll see and feel just what that's like, but also how that works for you and how it works. Let me just tell you where we stand in the stock market. The stock market is often presented as the great equalizer, but the truth is only about 58% of Americans own stock. The top 10% of Americans own over 85% of all stock market wealth. Most working class Americans are not investing, they are surviving. The stock market reflects wealth, not opportunity. Let me just tell you guys my opinion as to how this goes right now at this moment. The stock market is not a place to play with your money, because you put your money in that, I can tell you that you're probably going to get, you're going to lose your money. You're going to lose your money. And so, especially in today's times, if you have the opportunity to pull out or just let what you got go, don't get anything else, because with these times right now, that volatility is for real, and it's doing this. It's going straight up and down. It's going straight up and down. If you can't afford to do that, don't do it. And even if you can do it, don't do it, because this is way different. This is way different. And so the stock market is only for those that can comfortably put money in and not be worried as to if they're going to have it or not, if the stock is going to drop. So why playing the stock market is not right now. The moment is defined by volatility, uncertainty, and inflated valuations. Overvaluation, many stocks are priced far above their actual earnings for long term value. Economic instability, inflation, interest rate fluctuations, global tensions create unpredictable market swings and corporate layoffs. companies are cutting costs, signaling caution, not growth. Consumer debt. Americans are carrying record level of credit card and loan debt, weakened the foundation of the economy. And speculation culture is social media hype and algorithm driven trading create artificial spikes and crashes. So, in other words, keep your money in your pocket. Keep your money in your pocket. I think it's smart to get into the summer, that is around the May and June timeframe, and do a reevaluation. Because with volatility being the way it is right now, that's not a good thing for folk to go in and just start buying stock right now. I would not recommend anybody putting their money in the markets right now because of the volatility. Because I can say honestly that if you start putting your money into the market and you keep seeing it fluctuating like it's doing, 9 times out of 10, those fluctuations normally lead to a downward spiral. They lead to a downward spiral. And so if they're doing that, don't put your money in, especially if you can't afford to lose it. Because again, as I said earlier, we don't know where we're going and we don't know what is going to happen. So, for everyday Americans, especially those without generational wealth, this is not the time to gamble. This is the time to stabilize, save, and strategize. So, with that being said, I just wanted you guys to understand some things here about what's happening here in America, what is actually driving America right now, and how at some point you can make them a whole lot better. I am going to um, I'm going to close this show, but before I go, I'd like to ask each and every last one of you that are watching if you have not yet subscribed or enabled all notifications. I'm going to ask that you please support the show. And please subscribe and enable all notifications because you'll be able to go back and watch of our content, all of our content on all 8 channels in which we stream. You'll be able to watch every show. You'll be able to go back and watch any show that you like to watch, any particular person you like to watch. They're all there. And so, in closing, America is a nation in transition, a nation wrestling with its identity, its values, and its future. But transition is not failure, it is opportunity. Opportunity to confront the truth, opportunity to overcorrect, opportunity to correct the course, opportunity to build something better than what we inherited. Toni Morrison taught us that stories shape reality, and the story of America is still being written. We can choose a story of division, denial, and decline, or we can choose a story of courage, clarity, and collective responsibility. The world is watching us, our children are watching, history is watching. The question is not whether America can rise, the question is whether we will choose to rise together. This is America in black and white, and tonight we choose truth. I'm your host, Charles King. You guys have a great night, and please come check and watch us tomorrow night on Final Word Friday as we talk about these events that's happening and transpiring right now in America and what we all should have the abilities and be able to take care of when it comes to this. You guys have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow